You won't believe what Pastor Gino Jennings just said about gospel legend Cece Winans. In a statement that has sent shockwaves across the Christian community, Jennings claims that Winans' influence is creating a divide, not just among believers, but even reaching those outside the church. People are stunned, questions are being raised, and the debate is hotter than ever. Stay with me, because the details of what he revealed will leave you speechless and could change the way you see gospel music and Christian influence forever. The gospel world has always been full of inspiration, faith, and powerful voices, but sometimes even the most celebrated figures can spark controversy. That's exactly what happened when Pastor Gino Jennings spoke out about Cece Winans, one of gospel music's most beloved icons. According to Jennings, her influence is causing a division, not just within Christian circles, but even affecting non-Christians who look up to her. You might be wondering, what exactly did he mean? How can a celebrated gospel singer divide people? And why is this statement creating such an uproar online and within church communities? Well, in this video, we're going to break it all down, piece by piece. You'll get the full context behind Jennings' comments, the reactions from both supporters and critics, and the broader implications for gospel music and the church. This is where it gets interesting. Some insiders claim that Jennings' remarks weren't just about opinions. They hint at deeper tensions in the gospel industry, theological disagreements, and questions about influence and authority in the church today. You won't believe the examples he cited, the reactions from major church leaders, and the social media storm that followed. By the end of this video, you'll understand why Pastor Gino Jennings' statement isn't just a passing comment. It's a wake-up call for the church, for gospel music fans, and for anyone paying attention to the intersection of faith and influence. So stay tuned, because the truth behind what he said about Cece Winans is more shocking than most people realize, and it may change how you see some of your favorite gospel figures forever. To understand why Pastor Gino Jennings' comments about Cece Winans are causing such a stir, it's crucial to first understand who he is and why his words carry so much authority in the Christian community. Gino Jennings is not your average pastor. He is the founder and senior pastor of the First Church of Our Lord Jesus Christ in Philadelphia, a denomination known for its strict adherence to biblical teachings, prophetic insight, and bold public statements. Over the years, Jennings has built a reputation for fearlessly confronting what he perceives as spiritual and moral compromise in both church and society. He is known for speaking directly, often addressing controversial topics that many church leaders avoid. His sermons are fiery, unapologetic, and steeped in scripture, making him a polarizing figure. Followers admire his courage, calling him a prophet of the modern age, while critics sometimes label him as harsh or overly critical. This dual reputation means that when Jennings speaks, people listen, and they debate his words for weeks, sometimes months. Now, when Gino Jennings speaks about gospel music, his observations are not just casual opinions. He frames them through a spiritual lens, analyzing the impact of popular gospel figures on both Christians and the world at large. In his view, gospel artists are not just entertainers. They are spiritual influencers. Every song, public appearance, or statement carries weight and can shape theology, moral perspectives, and even church culture. That is why his commentary on Cece Winans resonates far beyond casual gossip. It touches on how spiritual authority and influence operate within the church today. Cece Winans herself is an icon. A multi-Grammy award-winning gospel singer, she has inspired millions with her music, her public testimony, and her presence in the Christian community. Many see her as a bridge between traditional gospel audiences and contemporary listeners, including younger generations who might not be regular churchgoers. Her influence is undeniable. Yet, according to Jennings, that influence has unintended consequences. Jennings' critique is not about her talent or her faith, it is about the cultural and spiritual impact of her platform. He claims that certain messages in her music or her public persona are contributing to confusion and division among believers, and, in some cases, creating misconceptions about Christianity for those outside the faith. This perspective makes his commentary highly controversial. Fans of Cece Winans see her as a unifying figure, someone who brings people to God through music. For Jennings, however, the concern is deeper. He believes that spiritual clarity and doctrinal accuracy must take precedence over popularity or Jennings has not shied away from calling out high-profile individuals in the gospel industry. From celebrity pastors to famous musicians, he has made waves by speaking about the dangers of compromising biblical teachings for cultural relevance. His reputation means that when he comments on Cece Winans, it cannot be dismissed as idle chatter. It carries the weight of a respected religious authority with thousands of followers listening intently. And there's another layer to consider. Jennings' approach is unapologetically direct. Unlike many church leaders who issue carefully worded statements to avoid backlash, Jennings often names or at least makes clear references to the individuals he critiques. This boldness increases both the impact and the controversy of his messages. When he said that Cece Winans is dividing Christians and non-Christians, it wasn't a casual remark. It was a pointed observation meant to provoke reflection, discussion, and, yes, debate. Social media amplifies his words further. Clips of his sermons, interviews, and statements are shared widely on platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, reaching audiences far beyond his local congregation. This digital reach means that his commentary on Cece Winans spreads quickly, generating heated conversations among gospel fans, churchgoers, and even secular audiences curious about Christian debates. The conversation quickly becomes more than just about Cece. It sparks broader questions about influence, responsibility, and spiritual leadership in the modern era. In short, understanding Pastor Gino Jennings' background is essential to understanding why this controversy matters. He is not merely a commentator. He is a high-profile spiritual leader with the credibility, platform, and audacity to make statements that challenge widely respected figures. His critique of Cece Winans is both a reflection of his theological perspective and a lightning rod for discussion about influence, authority, and spiritual accountability in the contemporary gospel landscape. As we move into the next section, we'll examine exactly what Jennings said about Cece Winans, including the specific statements, examples, and incidents he referenced that have left both supporters and critics talking. And trust me, the details are far more provocative than most people realize, and they set the stage for a conversation that is still raging across the Christian community today. Now that we understand who Pastor Gino Jennings is and why his voice matters, let's dive into the heart of the controversy: his statements about Cece Winans. These comments didn't just appear out of nowhere. They were part of a sermon that Jennings delivered to his congregation, which was later shared online and quickly went viral across social media platforms. Jennings opened the sermon by praising gospel music as a powerful tool for spreading the message of Christ. But then, in a sharp turn, he began to address what he perceives as a growing problem: the blending of entertainment and spiritual ministry in ways that blur the lines of true Christian teaching. He specifically referenced Cece Winans, stating that, while her talent and influence are undeniable, her approach is creating a subtle but significant divide among both Christians and non-Christians. He said, and I quote, "Cece Winans is loved by millions, but her influence has consequences. Some of the messages and the way she presents herself are causing confusion, creating a divide, and leading people to question what it truly means to follow Christ." He continued, explaining that some listeners interpret her performances more as entertainment than worship, and that this can distort spiritual understanding, especially for younger audiences who may not yet have a strong theological foundation. The controversy intensified when Jennings highlighted specific examples. Without naming every instance, he mentioned public appearances, collaborations with secular artists, and some lyrical choices in her music. He argued that these moves, though well-intentioned, risk sending mixed messages about the Christian faith. According to Jennings, when gospel crosses too far into mainstream appeal, it can unintentionally create spiritual ambiguity. Social media erupted almost immediately. Clips of his sermon showed Jennings speaking passionately, gesturing emphatically, and addressing the audience with the kind of force that has become his signature. Comments poured in from both sides. Supporters praised him for his boldness, saying he was speaking truth in love and holding leaders accountable. Critics, however, accused him of being unnecessarily harsh and targeting a beloved figure in the gospel world. Someone who has dedicated Jennings' remarks even more shocking was the way he framed the impact on non-Christians. He claimed that Cece Winans' influence reaches beyond the church and affects perceptions of Christianity for those who do not regularly attend services. When outsiders look at the church and see our leaders and artists blending spiritual teaching with entertainment, it can create confusion about what faith truly is, he said. This is why some people question the church and why some are drawn to it for the wrong reasons. The implications of this statement were huge. For many fans, Cece Winans represents a bridge between secular audiences and the gospel, a way for non-believers to experience the message of Christ through music. But Jennings framed this same influence as a double-edged sword, suggesting that even positive attention could inadvertently dilute the message of true worship. And here's where the tension escalates further. Jennings did not deliver his critique as a private warning or a mild suggestion. He positioned it as a moral and spiritual accountability moment. Every voice with influence has a responsibility, he said. God gives talent for a reason. If you've used that talent in a way that divides his people or misleads those seeking him, then you are accountable. The directness of his statement was unprecedented, especially coming from someone of Jennings' prominence. As expected, this caused a ripple effect in both church circles and online discussions. Major gospel blogs and Christian commentators began dissecting his statements, debating whether they were fair or overly critical. Some argued that Jennings' critique was a needed wake-up call, encouraging gospel artists to consider the spiritual weight of their influence. Others felt it was an unnecessary attack on a figure who has contributed decades of ministry and inspiration. Another point of contention came from the tone of his delivery. Video clips showed Jennings speaking with a mix of urgency and authority, his voice rising as he made his points. This intensity amplified the impact, making it feel less like a discussion and more like a proclamation. To some, this was powerful preaching. To others, it seemed confrontational, as if he were deliberately calling out Cece Winans in front of the world. Here's the cliffhanger that left viewers talking for weeks. While Jennings stopped short of outright condemnation, he made it clear that he believes all influential Christian figures must be held to the highest standards. He asked the audience rhetorically, if someone with your platform is leading people astray, even unintentionally, how will you answer to God? This statement sent shockwaves through the gospel community, leaving fans, church leaders, and even non-Christians questioning the fine line between influence and accountability in spiritual leadership. And as the video of his sermon circulated, the debate became impossible to ignore. Interviews with church leaders, fan reactions, and social media threads exploded with opinions. Some defended Cece Winans, praising her ministry and impact, while others agreed with Jennings, emphasizing the need for vigilance when faith and entertainment intersect. This controversy was no longer contained, it had become a national conversation within the gospel and broader Christian community. By breaking down exactly what Jennings said, we can see why his words were both shocking and conversation-starting. They forced a difficult conversation about influence, responsibility, and how leaders in the church, both pastors and artists, shape perceptions of faith. And in the next section, we'll examine the reactions from Cece Winans fans, church leaders, and social media, revealing just how divided the community has become. The moment Pastor Gino Jennings' sermon about Cece Winans went public, the reactions were immediate, passionate, and, in many cases, explosive. Social media became the battleground where supporters, critics, and curious observers clashed over whether Jennings' comments were a necessary call for accountability or an unfair attack on a gospel icon. Starting with fans of Cece Winans, many were shocked and confused. She has long been celebrated as a unifying figure in gospel music, someone whose songs reach millions of believers and non-believers alike. Fans flooded Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, defending her character and ministry. Comments ranged from simple affirmations of her impact, such as Cece has always led people closer to God. How can this be divisive? To more detailed analyses, pointing out her decades-long commitment to ministry and charitable work. Some fans saw Jennings' critique as overstepping, arguing that his public call-out risked harming the reputation of a beloved figure who has been instrumental in inspiring generations also weighed in, and their reactions were just as polarized. Some pastors and gospel leaders publicly supported Jennings, echoing his concern about influence and responsibility in ministry. They emphasized that with great influence comes great accountability, and highlighted that even minor missteps by high-profile Christian figures can have wide-reaching consequences. For these supporters, Jennings' message was a wake-up call for the entire gospel community, reminding artists and church leaders that spiritual guidance carries weighty responsibility. On the other side, other church leaders defended Cece Winans, pointing to her decades of faithful ministry and spiritual influence as evidence that she has consistently upheld Christian values. They argued that her work has united more people than it has divided, and that critiquing her publicly risks creating unnecessary tension within the Christian community. Some suggested that any concerns should have been addressed privately rather than on a public platform to prevent misinterpretation or escalation. Social media, of course, amplified the debate in ways that were unpredictable. Viral clips of Jennings' sermons circulated rapidly, often accompanied by commentary and reaction videos. Hashtags related to the controversy began trending, and online forums were flooded with heated discussions. Many non-Christians, who might have only been peripherally aware of gospel music, suddenly found themselves engaged in debates about spiritual accountability and the influence of celebrity figures within religion. Some influencers in the gospel space posted response videos, dissecting Jennings' points line by line. They debated whether his critique was fair, whether Cece Winans' influence really had divisive consequences, and whether public critique like this sets a precedent for accountability or hostility within the church. The spectrum of opinions was wide. Some saw Jennings as a fearless prophet holding leaders accountable, while others viewed him as unnecessarily confrontational and polarizing. The reactions didn't stop online. Interviews with both supporters and detractors of Jennings began appearing in gospel news outlets. A few church conferences even hosted panel discussions to examine the implications of his statements, asking questions like, how should Christian leaders navigate the balance between influence and doctrinal responsibility? Can an artist be both popular and spiritually responsible without causing division? These discussions highlighted how Jennings' remarks had touched on a larger issue, one that goes beyond Cece Winans herself into the realm of leadership, influence, and integrity in ministry.